Ransom, I'm sure if he looked down on us today, he'd be proud of Chatham because we are a growing community. We may be number 2 in the county, but we're trying harder to get after Springfield, so they know we're coming. We're proud of it. We have a good community here. I'm not going to take up a lot of your time because we have a speaker, and I just want to say welcome, have a good time. I'm sorry that the weather's this way, but at this time I'm going to turn it over to our Secretary of State, Jim Edgar, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It does work. Okay. I am delighted to be here. I got up and took a shower this morning, but I didn't have to. I found out after I got here. I would like to offer my congratulations to all the people that worked long and hard on making this event possible. And I know you have another day of events, and I think everyone on the committee deserves another round of applause from the people of Chatham. I think it's extremely important that we do take time to pause and remember the past. Remember those people who did so much to make our lives a lot easier. And I think it's especially appropriate that there's a lot of young people here today, because it's very important that we pass on that history, we pass on those traditions to the younger generation. I was an old history major in college and a great believer that you can't really plan for the future unless you take time to understand the past. So I think today and tomorrow it's fun, but it's also an important part of our responsibility to pass on to the younger generations the history of former generations. So again, I think this is a very important event in the life of the people of Chatham. I'm delighted to have been asked to take part. One, I like parades, though I don't really care for rain that much in parades, but still, everyone out there I think had a good time, and we just hope you don't all have pneumonia tomorrow. But I'm also happy to take part in this ceremony because Chatham has meant a lot to our family. A few years ago, we bought our first house just east of town on Wagon Wheel Lane. I didn't want to buy it, my wife did, so we bought it. And it turned out to be a good investment because prices kept going up. In fact, that's probably the only reason we could afford a house now is because she talked me into buying a house 15 years ago. Perhaps even more important, though, the Glenwood schools, which are the schools here for Chatham, are the schools that both of our children have gone to and will spend the most time in education in the Chatham schools. So the Chatham community is something that's very important to the Edgar family, and I'm happy to be here and to play a role in, I think, this very important day. You know, I know everyone was a little disappointed with the weather. Parades are a lot more fun when it's sunny, and last Saturday was a little nicer. But I was reading through this book that was sent out to me to kind of prepare. It was on the history of the Presbyterian Church here that Jane Stott put together, but it talked about the weather in the 1830s when Chatham was first chartered as a city, and really things weren't bad today. One period they had something called the deep snow in the early 1830s. They had 5 to 6 feet on the snow all winter long, and this rain wasn't that bad. Another incident they had was something called the sudden change, and in this case the temperature dropped 40 degrees supposedly in 1 second. Now I'm not sure how back in the 1830s they were able to be that precise, but that's getting awful cold awful fast. A lot of livestock got killed with that. A lot of people got killed. Also, they had something else that I really kind of afraid to bring up because it might be a reoccurrence. There's something they called the 40 days and nights of rain. I think we're maybe just 3 days into that, so I don't think we'll go that far. But the weather was a lot worse back in the 1830s. And fortunately, those folks had the perseverance to stick with it and start this community. And I think we can all get out and get a little wet in remembrance of what they went through back here in the prairies in the early 1800s. You know, one of the things that brought people to this country back in the early 1800s, they wanted to have a say in what happened in their lives. And we have an event coming up in a few days, and this is not going to be a partisan speech, it's just going to be a little civics lesson, that thing called the election. And a lot of those people back in the early 1800s gave up everything they had to come to this country, so they did have the opportunity to determine who was going to govern them. Now, unfortunately, even back then, they didn't let everyone vote. Today, we let the women vote. In fact, in most cases, the women probably vote more than the men do. So we've come a long way. But I think it's important for us on the eve of a major election in this state to remember that there's still a lot of people in this world that don't have the opportunity to vote. Many people give their lives every year trying to win that right to vote. We in this country have that right because people back in our early history persevered. They started this country. They put up with all the hardships that they had to face. I think we would fail them if we don't exercise that right on November 4th. I hope everyone here will do that. Small communities have always played a major role in our country. And small really is only maybe in population. It's not in what's in that community. And I don't think it's any accident the last two presidents of this country, even though we're in the almost into the 21st century, the last two presidents still were born in very small communities. Jimmy Carter, Plains, Georgia; President Reagan, Tampico, Illinois. Those aren't what you call bustling metropolitan areas, but they produced two presidents, one Republican, one Democrat. So we're bipartisan in that too. My mother grew up in a community north of Mattoon, Illinois called Humboldt. I don't know how many of you have ever been to Humboldt, know where it is. It only has about 400 people. But all the time I was growing up, my mother continued to remind me that, talking about her hometown, because I grew up in a big city called Charleston. We had 10,000 people. The mayor talks about you're number 2 in Sangamon County, fast approaching Springfield. I came to Springfield 20 years ago. We thought we had made it to the big city. I remember my wife didn't want to come to Springfield. She didn't think she could ever drive in a city that had all that much traffic. Sometimes when she takes Elizabeth to school, she comes back and she's not sure about all the traffic she had to go through just to get to Glenwood School. But the thing my mother used to tell me, and I think it's very true, and I think it's important for everyone here in Chatham to remember, maybe when they're talking to people from Springfield, and Springfield might say, you know, we're a lot bigger. It's quality, not quantity, that counts. And I think that's something we need to remember, all of us from small communities and all of us from big cities, that it's not the size of the community, it's what's in the people that make up that community. And I think the people who started Chatham 150 years ago can be very proud, the people that now live in Chatham, and all the things that you're doing to make your community a better place to live, for all the families, and for all the things you're doing for the surrounding area. Again, the Edgars are delighted to be part of the Chatham community, to be part of the schools, because we think there's no better place to raise your family than in the Chatham community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.